that last, experience matters. You've probably seen some companies offering long warranties, 10 years or more. But here's something important to consider. Can a company without a long track record truly back that up? It's easy to make promises, but what really counts is the ability to deliver, not just now, but 5, 10, or even 20 years down the line. If a company hasn't been around for very long, what happens if they go out of business before the end of their 10-year warranty? What happens to your warranty then? The answer is simple. You're left with nothing. No support, no repairs, no protection. You've essentially been robbed of the protection you were promised. At Mallett Buildings, we've been here for the long haul, with over 2 decades of experience. We have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and countless satisfied customers who can tell you, when we say we offer a 10-year workmanship warranty, we've proven it time and time again. And if something goes wrong years from now, we'll still be here, ready to make it right. Our customers trust us because we don't just build structures, we build long-lasting relationships. We use only the highest quality materials, kiln-dried, ground-treated lumber, and MCA ground-treated posts with lifetime warranties. That's why our buildings are designed to stand strong for decades, and why we can confidently stand behind our warranties. And don't forget, we're a state-licensed contractor with licensed engineers right here in Louisiana and Texas. We don't cut corners, and we adhere to the highest standards, ensuring that every building we construct is built to last. When you choose Mallett Buildings, you're choosing a company with real credentials, real experience, and a proven commitment to quality. We've built for families, businesses, farms, and more, all with the same dedication to excellence that's been our hallmark for over 25 years. So when a company tells you they're offering a long warranty, ask yourself this: where will they be in 10 years? If they disappear, so does your warranty. Here at Mallet, you know we'll be here, just like we've always been. At the end of the day, a warranty is only as good as the company that stands behind it. Choose the name that's been trusted for decades. Choose Mallett Buildings. When you're ready to invest in a building that lasts, call us and let's get started. At Mallett Buildings, we've been proudly serving our community for over 25 years. When it comes to building structures that last, experience matters. You've probably seen some companies offering long warranties, 10 years or more. But here's something important to consider. Can a company without a long track record truly back that up? It's easy to make promises, but what really counts is the ability to deliver, not just now, but 5, 10, or even 20 years down the line. If a company hasn't been around for very long, what happens if they go out of business before the end of their 10-year warranty? What happens to your warranty then? The answer is simple. You're left with nothing. No support, no repairs, no protection. You've essentially been robbed of the protection you were promised. At Mallett Buildings, we've been here for the long haul, with over 2 decades of experience. We have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and countless satisfied customers who can tell you, when we say we offer a 10-year workmanship warranty, we've proven it time and time again. And if something goes wrong years from now, we'll still be here, ready to make it right. Our customers trust us because we don't just build structures, we build long-lasting relationships. We use only the highest quality materials, kiln-dried, ground-treated lumber, and MCA ground-treated posts with lifetime warranties. That's why our buildings are designed to stand strong for decades, and why we can confidently stand behind our warranties. And don't forget, we're a state-licensed contractor with licensed engineers right here in Louisiana and Texas. We don't cut corners, and we adhere to the highest standards, ensuring that every building we construct is built to last. When you choose Mallett Buildings, you're choosing a company with real credentials, real experience, and a proven commitment to quality. We've built for families, businesses, farms, and more, all with the same dedication to excellence that's been our hallmark for over 25 years. So when a company tells you they're offering a long warranty, ask yourself this: where will they be in 10 years? If they disappear, so does your warranty. Here at Mallet, you know we'll be here, just like we've always been. At the end of the day, a warranty is only as good as the company that stands behind it. Choose the name that's been trusted for decades. Choose Mallet Buildings. When you're ready to invest in a building that lasts, call us and let's get started. At Mallet Buildings, we've been proudly serving our community for over 25 years. When it comes to building structures that last, experience matters. You've probably seen some companies offering long warranties, 10 years or more. But here's something important to consider. Can a company without a long track record...
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Mallet Buildings, your trusted partner in post-frame construction. We are proud to offer you the highest quality structures, custom designed to meet your needs. Our team of experts is dedicated to providing superior craftsmanship, backed by years of experience and a commitment to excellence. Please take a moment to explore our innovative design options, competitive pricing, and unmatched customer service. Thank you for choosing Mallet Buildings, where we build stronger together. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Mallet Buildings, your trusted partner in post-frame construction. We are proud to offer you the highest quality structures, custom designed to meet your needs. Our team of experts is dedicated to providing
I'm Kevin Linderman, and I wanted to show you guys around my new Mallet Premium building. And one of the other things I wanted to talk to you about today was how impressed I was with Mallet as a company. I'm a pretty particular person, as you're probably going to be able to tell when you look at the inside of the shop, but I couldn't find one thing to complain about. All the crews showed up on time. They did exactly what was expected. They cleaned up after themselves. They finished in time, and I couldn't be more satisfied with the whole process. Mallet Building updated my text messages every so often. Mallet Building would text me the updates on what was going to happen next the whole time, kept me abreast of the latest developments. So I would give Mallet Buildings a 10 out of 10. One of the things that I was the most concerned about when I went to order my building was, is it going to be big enough? What size do I actually need? I ended up purchasing a 40 by 80, and the front 20 feet is the awning that you see. So the enclosed building is 40 by 60. And so come on, I'll show you around and you can see what actually fits in a 40 by 60. So I do different industrial steel projects. You can see I have a lot of big industrial equipment, and I have plenty of room to get around. I even have room to set things on the floor if I have a really large project that doesn't fit on the welding table. And then in this back corner over here is where I have all of the automotive. Wash my truck, put diesel exhaust fluid in. This is also where I keep my bolts and screws in this gray cabinet, and I decided to go with shop air. So I have 3/4 inch air running throughout the whole shop. This is my sharpening station if I need to sharpen a chainsaw or work on any small engines. And then you can see my wood shop is on this side over here. Now you can tell about how much better the metal side looks than the wood side. I'm more of a metal guy than a wood shop guy. Right here, I developed a paint booth because no matter what project I do, I'm gonna end up painting it at some point. And so this is air conditioned. There's double doors in case I have a big project I need to bring in, but I have air ran in here and air conditioning, and this fan vents the fumes outside. You can see I have the 3 lights so I don't get any shadows. This room is 8 foot by 12 foot. And then this room over here is our craft room, mainly for my mom. This room is 12 foot by 14 foot. And it's also air conditioned. And it's still a little bit of a work in progress. I still have to do my dust collection, which you see sitting here, but it's not hooked up yet. And then this will eventually be cabinetry, where we will have a miter station and some drawers to store things. Still a work in progress. I did install a bathroom facility here, mainly for mom again. But we have an in-shop bathroom. I'm a big coffee guy, so we have a kitchen.
Tired of gimmicks and spooky tricks? At Mallet Buildings, we don't need to raise prices from the dead or play games with your budget, but we will gladly bury any high prices that come your way. At Mallet Buildings, we're committed to keeping things straightforward, matching any written quote from a competitor, and making sure high prices get buried once and for all. Mallet Buildings, built with trust.
Hello, Lee Mallett from Mallet Buildings. Well, I made it back from Atlanta. I hope you all watched that. That was an interesting show. We'll be putting in a roll form plant here pretty soon. Anyway, let's get started. First, we'll start out, folks. This is the number of referrals this week alone. You can tell a lot by the fact that people are referring their friends and other people that go see them. This tells a lot about us that we get these kind of referrals, and that they all got $200. They all got $200 check because they were able to do that and refer somebody. So if you want to refer somebody, you can make $200. Or become an ambassador. We'd love for you to become an ambassador where you show your building, or you take a phone call, and you can make $200 every time you do that. We're willing to work with you to do that for us. Now, don't forget the Tiger Cash. If you want to type in cash, you get $1,000 on the Tiger Cash. I see Mr. Hughes. Just give me a second, Mr. Hughes. I'm going to get to you. And then the weekly specials, you get $2,000 off any elite or signature building. Okay, that's the special for the week. So you add that plus the Tiger Cash, that's $3,000 you can take off the price of the quote from the building specialist. What we got next? Okay, if you recall the elite building, I'm still a little sick, so you got to bear with me. I'm still not 100%. But anyway, this is what you get with an elite building. Elite building has really got everything. You're not going to find anybody else to do a 3-foot truss spacing, 9-foot post spacing, 5 and 12 standard. These guys will tell you they build the same as us. They don't build the same as us. That's not true. But nobody's building this building. That building costs more money because of what's in it, from the 6-inch slab to everything else that we put in this building. So this week you can get $2,000 plus Tiger Cash. That'll end tomorrow. So if you interested in buying the building, you get $3,000 off the price by doing this. Go next. Here's the price match special. This is the only thing that any of my competitors want to put out there, so we'll stick with that one for the moment. That's Southern Building. They say don't pay more for less. Well, you're paying more for less when you buy from them, because I'm going to knock off a price match is $1,000. The Tiger Cash, that's $2,000 cash off this building. And I'm going to give you roof and wall insulation, and I'm going to give you a roll-up door, and I'm going to put cement in the holes, and I'm going to give you the retention system. This is a bad deal. This is a good deal. And you get the electrical package. So here's your prices. Hey, that's a price match special. We'll keep running until one of them run another special, but we hadn't seen it yet. So hopefully apparently they're scared to put anything on their site, because we'll do this to them. Let's go. Now, one of them did this. This is kind of funny. All right. Send us a quote from our competitor, and we'll raise our price from the dead. What, they're going to raise the price? What is that all about? Raise the price? I thought he would lower the price. I just had to put this up there because I thought it was kind of funny. We got if you were paying attention, the commercial we ran addressed this. We went and buried it, but the price went down when we buried that quote. It didn't go up. So I don't know who designed this, unless it was Corey boy. But Corey, you need to understand, they're not interested in raising the price, Corey. They want the price to come down. But anyway, I thought this was kind of funny. So anyway, go to the next one. All right, this is Mr. Tackett. He's here today, He's got an interesting show that he's going to put on, and I'm going to sit back and let him put on the show when I start. But right off the bat, I need to talk to two people. Mr. Odie Hughes is up there right now. Mr. Hughes, I looked at that. I'll take $10,000 off. Any building you buy, I'll deduct $10,000. Any three you want. And I'll give you another $1,000 for the cash. So that's $11,000. Okay? So you take your quote, you can deduct $10,000 on any one of these buildings, plus $1,000 cash because you typed in cash. So you got $11,000 discount on any of these buildings. No, I appreciate you, Mr. Hughes. And then we got Mr. Julian. I don't know if he's listening. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead. That way they can go back and look at the tape. So on your deal, Mr. Julian, if you buy the Elite building, I'll knock $5,000 off. If you buy the Signature, I can knock $3,000 off. Okay, if Mr. Julian's not listening, the guys downstairs will get with you, Mr. Julian. I mean, on my quote this week. Well, where's Mr. Rojas' quote? Yeah, I'll have to go. I don't have it up here, Mr. Rojas. You should have told him they'd have got it up here. Call him and see it. I think that's Tyler. Let him get up here. We'll continue on. But anyway, let's run to a commercial right now. When we come back from the commercial, we're going to have Mr. Tackett put on his presentation. He's done a lot of work. He's got about 80 slides on different things, and I think it's going to be a very interesting show. Now, remember, Mr. Tackett bought this building from us. He's making a barndominium out of this, and I think he's also got storage over here. I think it looks like an RV. Yeah. Shop. Shop. He's got a shop here. So anyway, he's here. As soon as we come back from the commercial, we're going to get him on. We're going to get his presentation started. Go ahead.
Tired of gimmicks and spooky tricks? At Mallet Buildings, we don't need to raise prices from the dead or play games with your budget, but we will gladly bury any high prices that come your way. At Mallet Buildings, we're committed to keeping things straightforward, matching any written quote from a competitor, and making sure high prices get buried once and for all. Mallet Buildings, built with trust. Tired of gimmicks and spooky tricks? At Mallet Buildings, we don't need to raise prices from the dead or play games with your budget, but we will gladly bury any high prices that come your way. At Mallet Buildings, we're committed to keeping things straightforward, matching any written quote from a competitor, and making sure high prices get buried once and for all. Mallet Buildings, built with trust. Tired of gimmicks and spooky tricks? At Mallet Buildings,
we're back. Here with Mr. Tackett. He's got a presentation, and I'm going to sit back in a few seconds, let him have that. Mr. Hughes would like to go see you.
Oh, he stopped out this morning. He took a look at it while I was
You already looked at it, I think, Mr. Hughes. But
yeah,
anyway,
he's welcome to come check it back out.
Well, you're welcome to come. He's right here. He said he'd love to come check it out. You can come check it out with him. That's fine. So anyway, I'm going to let y'all, if you recall, about 3 weeks ago, Mr. Tackett was here, and we got a video we're running all the time on his presentation or whenever he was here. But he's got some interesting stuff here today. And I'm going to turn it over to him and get after it.
All right. So about 2-3 weeks ago, on one of the live feeds, somebody had made a comment as to what's actually involved with building out a barndominium. So that's what I put together today was the presentation to just talk about some of the things that you're going to have to keep in mind, some of the things that you're going to need to do to convert that shell actually into a barndominium. So we're going to go over several things today. We're going to talk about converting your building shell into your residence, underslab plumbing, some of the interior framing, windows and doors, and any other electrical requirements that's going to affect your build.
Excuse me. Let's see what he's got here.
Oops.
What's he trying to do?
So some of the key points going forward. First thing that you need to do is you need to find a floor plan. So you need to figure out exactly what kind of structure it is that you want to build, what your square footage is, what kind of floor plan it is that you want to lay out, because your building, when you go and price the building, it's going to be completely based on that floor plan. You can either go online and purchase one, or you can create a sketch. There's several people that you can find online through the Facebook groups that will actually convert your sketch into a floor plan. The next thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to locate a suitable building site. If you do not have the land, you need to locate where your land's going to be at. Now, I'm talking primarily from the fact that we're in Louisiana here. So once you get your floor plan, you find your building site, you need one of the most important things I could tell people to do is to go meet with your parish building department. We started our planning about 6 years ago, and we bought our property about 4.5 years ago, and I was in conversation with the building department in our parish for almost a year before we actually purchased our building shell. So that allowed them to get familiar with what it was that I was going to do. It allowed me to get familiar with the people there, and it's gone very, very smoothly. Since you're in Louisiana, you need to verify what your floodplain rating is, preferably before you buy your land. We purchased ours. It's floodplain X, which means there's no specific restrictions on it. It's outside the 500-year floodplain. I can't really understand how you're going to build an actual barndominium on a slab if you're in one of the floodplains where you're subjected to your base flood elevations. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. What kind of water is available? What are the septic system requirements on the land that you're looking at? These are all questions that you need to be asking up front while you're doing your research. And finally, make an appointment with a Mallet building specialist to talk about your building shell that you want to have them put up for you for your barndominium. So, some of the questions for your building department. First thing is, are you familiar with what a post frame barndominium is? A lot of places they don't know exactly what a post frame building is. So you need to sit down with them, talk to them, get them to understand what it is, what type of building that you want to put up, because they're going to have questions. If they're not familiar with post frame construction, they will have questions. Some of the things, depending on what parish that you live in, are they going to require you to have footers between the posts? Are they going to require you to have wire mesh in the concrete slab? Our slab has microfiber in it. We did not have to have wire mesh in it, but there are some parishes, even though it's a microfiber slab, they're still going to require you to have wire mesh in it. You need to know these things up front. Some of them will allow you to sign a waiver for the footers or the wire mesh. Can you be your own general contractor of record? I'm the general contractor for our building permit, and I do any sub work that I don't do myself. I sub it out to another contractor, which helps save money. Does my building permit cover all the different trades, or am I going to need additional permits? In Washington Parish, where we live at, our primary building permit for the structure, it covers all trades. So the HVAC specialist, the plumbing contractor, they don't have to go pull a separate permit for the work that they're going to do. It falls underneath our building permit. Do you allow the owner to do their own work? Are there any restrictions on that? Some parishes will allow you to do work, some won't. If they won't allow you to do your own work, that's obviously going to affect the overall cost of your building. What kind of wind load rating am I required to meet? In Washington Parish, we're required to meet 130 miles per hour wind load. As soon as we go a little bit further south, we start getting into St. Tammany Parish, and then down by Mandeville, it jumps up to about 145. And the further south you go, the higher it goes. So you need to know what that wind loading is. Do you require wind-rated roll-up doors? Do you require a compaction test for your building pad? Okay, so these are just some of the questions that you need to think about when you're having conversations with your building department, so you know what's going to be going on as you get into your build. Do your research. So this comment showed up on one of the Facebook forums that I follow, and it says, question for the group. We have wanted a barndominium for years. We are purchasing our land. So they're already in the process of buying their land, probably at the point where they cannot back out of it at this point, but they didn't do their research up front, and now they found out that they cannot have a metal-sided structure for a residence. They can have a metal roof, but no metal siding. So now they're looking for suggestions, but they're already well into the phase of getting ready to do construction, and they should have already had this research done up front. So do your research. It's just like Lee says all the time about researching people that you're going to be contracting with. The same thing. When you're getting ready to build, make sure that you do your research in your parish so that you know up front before you do anything exactly what it is that you're going to be running into. So some of the ways to help keep your costs down. A single-story building is always going to be cheaper than a two-story or loft when you're talking about post-frame construction. It's cheaper to go longer than it is wider. Square foot cost increase with span. So I was talking with one of the building specialists before the live feed today, and I asked him on a 4,000 square foot building, one being a 40 wide by 100 foot long, and the other one being 50 foot wide by 80 foot long. Both of them come up to 4,000 square feet. There's about $1.75 square foot increase in cost when you go to the wider width. So if you haven't picked your floor plan yet, if you can design your structure around that narrower but longer width, that's going to save you square footage cost on your overall build for the building shell. Ceiling height is going to impact what your HVAC requirements are, and it's going to impact your finishing costs. Do you want high ceilings? If so, you're going to have to expect that some of your costs are going to go up. Do you do as much work as that you can yourself? It's called sweat equity. Most people are familiar with what that term is. The more work that you can do yourself, obviously you're going to save quite a bit more money. Set a realistic budget and stick to it. I mean, if you want them, I mean, that's fine, but do you really need $22 per square foot granite countertops? If you're trying to build on a budget and be cost effective as possible, you may have to make some concessions in some places for that. So a little bit about barndominium history here. Where did this come from? The term barndominium was created back in 1989 by Carl Nielsen, who he built a subdivision in Connecticut, and that subdivision was focused on combining a residence with horse stables. So this was a very regional thing. It was successful for the subdivision that he built, but it really didn't spread out beyond that regional area there. The barndominium craze really picked up steam back in 2016 when there was an episode on, I think it's HGTV or HGTV Fixer Upper, where they converted a barn, it was a metal frame building, into an actual residence. So that's what really kind of kicked off the barndominium craze was that episode on TV. So the history of it, this is coming off of Google Trends, and you can see here that right in here was about the time that the HGTV series show aired, and the trend for barndominium started to peak up. And then over here in 2019, this is where it really took off, and it has gone and climbed up to where it's extremely popular on Google Trends today. Over the last 5 years, the interest in barndominiums has really increased a lot. And the areas of the country where it's most popular at, Texas is #1, and some of the other southern states, Oklahoma, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas. Louisiana is ranked as 12th as far as popularity for barndominiums. So it's more popular a little bit to the west of us over in Texas and some of the other surrounding states, but it's beginning to pick up a lot of interest here in Louisiana as well. So with increasing popularity of what was initially cheaper, that was one of the big draws for a barndominium, is that they were much cheaper per square footage to build than a traditional stick frame house was. So, but now your barndominiums, there's an entire sector of the construction industry that's catering specifically to barndominiums. So now the cost for a barndominium rivals what a custom house is per square foot. So it's not as popular as it was as far as being able to save money for the square footage of the building. But it doesn't have to be that way. It depends on how you go about putting your barndominium together, whether you can save a significant amount of money or not. So in Louisiana, the average cost per square foot for a house for a medium quality build is $106.70 per square foot. So we're putting up a 5,500 square foot building that's going to be our barndominium, and going per that rate, the cost comes out to be almost $587,000 for a turnkey structure. And what city you live in can also have an impact on that square footage cost. For example, New Orleans is 121, Baton Rouge is 150, Shreveport is 117, and Lake Charles, the region over here by where Mallett Buildings is located at, is at $120 per square foot. Now, like I said, we're building a 5,500 square foot building. It's 4,500 square foot that's actually enclosed. The building footprint for the slab, it's a 50 by 110 foot building. So we went with the Mallet Premium, which is now the Mallet Elite building. And our building shell cost complete came out to be $26.70 per square foot. Okay, so this was with all the doors. We added some additional doors in there. I went and purchased a 14 by 14 roll-up door, conventional roll-up door. But all that combined together with the building shell, it came out to $26.70 a square foot. We just had our underslab plumbing put in, which was about $9,500, so that brought us up to about $28.40 per square foot. We expect the final cost to come in somewhere between $45 and $50 per square foot. So by being our own general contractor and subbing out any work that we can't do ourselves, we're going to come in somewhere between 50 to 60% less than what the average square footage cost is for a turnkey building. So initially we had 2 bids that wanted to do our structure turnkey, and both of them were right in line with the state average, and they were over $550,000. So this is our initial 3D rendering of our building, and this is off of Mallett's 3D building site that you can go online to malletbuildings.com, and you can use their 3D tool to create your building. And once you get all your windows and your porches and everything, your doors set and everything, you can send that directly to Mallett Buildings, to one of their building specialists, and they can get you an exact quote for the type of building that you want to construct. So that's the first step of the process. So this is our actual building itself. So this is what it looks like. So we have the residence is about 2,500 square foot. It's on the left-hand side. It's got a 10-foot gable overhang out front. And the rear portion of the building has a 10-foot wing extension on it. And it's 2,000 square foot, so it's a 40 by 50 shop. And the difference is between the two heights, we went with a lower ceiling height in the residence section. So we have 10-foot eave walls on the forward portion. And back in the shop, we have 16-foot high eave walls. So it's giving me the clearance. We've got a 40-foot fifth wheel that we're going to be putting inside the building once we get it finished. So this is a nice little shot of the building. So we're just about ready to get main power into the building. So I wanted to go ahead and start lighting up the building for my wife there so that she could see it at nighttime and it could be seen from the road. So this is just a little night shot with the pine trees and everything in the background. So it's a very nice looking structure. And this is our floor plan that we have for the building structure. So you can see in here that the main part of the building right in here, this is all one big large open area. It's roughly about 30 by 35 square feet. It's all open. So it combines the living room into one big great room. We have an island that's in the kitchen, so the kitchen is on the back side of it. So we maximize the open space in our building. And it's going to be a 3-bedroom, and it's going to be a 2 full bath in the house, and then we have another full bath that's going to be out in the shop area. So this all combined, it comes up to about 2,500 square feet. So these are some of the latest pictures. So a little bit of on our project update here. So this is where they just finished up putting in the vapor barrier, the visqueen, and the cable retention system, which Mallet buildings use, and they're the only ones that use it. So this is what helps tie your slab into your post footers so that you don't have any uplift on the building if you get any wind uplift from a severe hurricane or even a tornado that's nearby. So it's going to keep your building intact and on the ground. So you can see the cables that are running back and forth across the building. So they use aircraft cable that ties all the posts together. So it's crisscrossed in a grid section across the building to tie that in. And then this is all buried into the concrete. So here's another picture back in our shop area here. You can see the cable retention system that's running across through there between all the posts and diagonally throughout the building. They also put the cable retention system on the front porches. The front and the rear porch both have that cable retention system, so it's to prevent uplift on your overhangs. And yesterday, we had our concrete poured. So this was about, I think they woke me up about 5 minutes after 5 o'clock yesterday morning with the Louisiana concrete pumper truck backing into the property and getting set up, and the first batch truck was dumping concrete right before 6 a.m. So they were out there and they were on the ball to get that concrete poured. So here they are. We had to use a line pump in our building just due to the size of the building and the length of the slab. So you may need to have that line pump truck. If you do, your building specialist will explain that to you. That is an additional cost that you'll have to cover, but they'll make arrangements for the line pump. I think ours yesterday, we pumped 100 yards of concrete, and I think it was about $1,800 for charge for the line pump. But that's really the only way that you can guarantee a good quality slab is by using that pumper truck so that they can get that in there rapidly to get the concrete on the ground as quickly as possible. On the front and the rear porches, to get the pumper truck out of there as quickly as possible, they switch back over to the trough style where they drop the concrete straight from the truck. So they did that on the front and the rear porches of it. And this is what it looks like when it was finished. So they're going through and doing the finishing work on it right now, and turned out to be an extremely high quality job, both the concrete and the people themselves. How much time between when they started the shell until where you're at now? They started, I can't remember when it was. Was it in July? I think it was in July they started our building. It took them about, I think it was 19 days to erect the entire building structure. That was complete with all the metal and all the framing up on it. And we lost about 3 days in there. We had one person that had to come back off the crew, and then we lost 2 days to heavy rains on there. So if that size of building, about 2 weeks. Then I had about another month that was in there for getting my underslab plumbing and my electrical and getting everything finished up, getting it regraded. So it's been about 3 months total since they actually started erecting the building, but most of that was on us and our plumber and getting the other arrangements and stuff made to get ready to pour the concrete. So hopefully that answers your question. And Mr. Hughes, you're welcome to come out. I'll be back over there at the building tomorrow. If you want to come out tomorrow on Saturday and take a look at it and let me show you around, you're more than welcome to come back out. So here they are on the front and the rear porches that we're doing the finish work on there. My wife has not seen this yet, but she is so excited. She can't wait now that she's got concrete on her front porches. I figure it's probably going to take her about a week and she'll have it filled up with all her Christmas stuff that she's been storing up there. Okay, so converting your building shell into a residence. So you need to look at the shell as basically it's a blank canvas. So because of the design of the post frame construction, you have clear span construction in there, and you're not tied into having to have a bunch of load bearing walls in there. So you can literally, you can sit down and draw it out, whatever your creative desires are, you can put that into play inside a post frame building. Now these are some just random pictures of barndominiums that I picked up off the internet. Okay, but you can see as we go through here how they can either be very simple or they can be very ornate. It just depends on what your budget is. Oop, go, there we go. So here on the left, this is actually a fairly simple barndominium, but because of the decor that they went with on it, it looks very upscale. Over on the right-hand side, this is a clear span. This is like a great room that we're going to have in our house where our kitchen is back off to one side of it and the rest of it is all living space. This one on the right has a vaulted ceiling. You can get that vaulted ceiling look if you go with the scissor trusses, which primarily come standard on the Mallet buildings. You can go with the flat bottom trusses like we did, or you can go with the scissor trusses, but they come standard with the scissor trusses. So this is just some additional pictures. So this one on the left has a high vaulted ceiling. So they didn't have room for their heating, ventilation, and cooling ducts up in the space between the joist and the roof line. So in a lot of the barndominiums, they'll run a central AC trunk right down the middle of the building in the open space and just dump the heat or the cooling air directly out into the space, which is the same thing that your ceiling registers are going to do. Over on the right-hand side, they've used shiplap for their wall finishing instead of sheetrock. Shiplap is something that a homeowner could do fairly easily themselves. Sheetrock takes a little bit more skill to do, although sheetrock is generally a little bit cheaper in cost. Am I hitting the button? There it goes. Okay. So again, this is one of the really nice things that we liked about the post frame barndominium is the fact that you have these large great rooms that you can tie all your activities together in there. So that's what we wanted when we designed our building. So like I said, our great room is about a 30 by 35 great room. And over here on the right, this is another one that's got a high vaulted pitch to the ceiling. But it's very open in here. Now, one of the things I did want to point out, Lee's been talking about relief cuts, and I'm not sure if you can see it in this picture or not, but if you can see where they've put the relief cuts in this concrete. Now, they're using the concrete as their finished floor. Same thing over here, you can see the relief cuts that are running across here. So those are very important for your concrete slab, because what that does is if it's going to crack anywhere, it's going to crack along where they made that cut at. So you're not going to have a crack running diagonal across the floor. It's going to be where the relief cut's at, so it's not going to be visible. You can, once they make those cuts, you can clean them out. You can put a foam backer rod in there, and then you can fill that cut with concrete caulk, so you really don't even see it that it's there. So, a couple of things about when you're going to a barndominium, all right? Generally what all the construction companies, what they sell is an accessory building. That's not the same as a barndominium, which is a residence. So your building department, which is one of the main reasons I mentioned setting up a meeting with them beforehand, they're going to tell you what the parish requirements are And some of the areas to note is, do they have any additional foundation requirements? Can you build strictly on a slab, or are they going to require you to have footers between the posts? What are my insulation requirements? And the rest check certificate. So this is a residential check efficiency certificate that the homeowner has to fill out. And you're going to need all the information from your windows and your doors. You're going to need the information about the size of your rooms, what type of insulation you're going to be putting in there. That's all required to fill out that certificate, and you have to have that to go along with your permit request. What are the HVAC requirements? What are the efficiency requirements? You will have to have a firewall between your shop and the garage because it's a residence. And there are some additional electrical requirements that are different between an accessory building and an actual barndominium for your residence. So this is our rest check compliance certificate that we had to fill out beforehand, that we had to submit with our building permit request, and it was a requirement. And what you're going to be looking for when you get this filled out is this green bar right down here at the middle. So this says compliance passes using the UA trade-off, 19.5% better than code requirements. So our building efficiency, so this is all about efficiency in your heating and cooling and your energy uses, is determined by what this certificate comes up with when it runs through its computer program. So this is a preliminary certificate. It cannot be finalized until after your HVAC provider has provided you the information from their system, and also your installation provider has provided their information. But you have to have the preliminary certificate showing that your building structure passes before you file for your permit. So another thing that Lee likes to talk about quite a bit is the building pad. Now the building pad, that's going to form the base of your building, and it becomes a part of your structure's actual foundation. Now the building pad is not included with your building package that you're going to contract with somebody for. That is the homeowner's responsibility to have a level compacted building site. So when you get ready to put in your building pad, you need to locate a reputable local contractor who knows what kind of soil type that you have in your area. Somebody that's done building pads, that they know what it is that they need to bring in to set up your pad. If you're in a flood zone, you need to make sure that your final grade is going to be above your base flood elevation, plus 18 inches. This is a FEMA requirement. So if you're in one of the flood zone A areas, you're going to have a base flood elevation. And in Louisiana, that could be anywhere from 3 feet to 16 feet in height. And you have to build 18 inches above whatever that base flood elevation is. So again, that's what I was talking about when you're looking for property. A big thing to consider is, what type of flood zone am I going to be in? Can I actually build a barndominium on a slab on this piece of land? Because some places you may have to elevate the structure anywhere from 3 feet to 15 or 16 feet in the air, and that doesn't fit with this type of construction. You need to allow at least 6 additional feet on each side of your building pad. So if you're putting up a 50 by 50 building, you need to put in about a 62 by 62 pad. And your concrete is only going to be as good as your pad. So if you have a bad pad under your concrete, guess what? Your concrete's going to settle, and you're going to get a lot of cracking from it. So it provides the foundation for your concrete to actually sit on. So this is our building pad that we had put in, and we had this done about 6 months ago, or 6 months prior to the actual building construction. So our property had a little bit of a slope to it, so it's raised about 12 inches in the front and about 18 to 20 inches higher in the back to level off the building site in preparation for the building and the concrete. Now this was compacted white clay. So we had it brought in, and the contractor, they compacted it, and then we let it set for about another 6 months. So just the natural rainfall helped compact it even more. So the picture on the right that you see over here, this is where the plumber was excavating the trenches for the plumbing, and this pad is so hard, this compacted white clay is so hard that when they were excavating it, it comes out literally like chunks of concrete. So this is an example of a very well constructed pad that has good compaction on it, and it's going to provide very, very good support for your concrete. So now you're getting into, you're going to have your underslab plumbing. So that's got to be in once your building is up and it's constructed. Mallet Buildings has come in, they've struck the final grade inside of it. If you're not going to have plumbing in there, then the next step for them would be the vapor barrier and the cable retention system. If you are going to be converting it into a residence, you're going to have all your drainage, your sanitary plumbing that's put in before they put in the cable retention system and the vapor barrier. So you need to find a good local contractor. Just like Lee always says with the red flags, it applies not only to a builder, but any contractor you use. You need to be checking out how many years have they been in business. Do they have any violations with the state? What are the reviews on Google? What are the reviews on the Better Business Bureau? Have they been convicted of fraud? These are all things that you need to consider for no matter who it is. If you're planning on giving them your hard-earned money, you need to make sure that they're a good, reliable contractor that's going to be there and do the work that you contract them to do. So your underslab plumbing, those are going to be your drains and your vents. It's not going to be your water supply. Typically, you do not run your water supply underneath the concrete slab just due to the ability to fix any leaks in it. And then if you get any real cracking in the concrete, it could also damage your water lines. So your water lines are going to be run with PEX A tubing through the overhead and through your walls. So this is just going to be your sanitary lines and your vents. You also need to talk to your HVAC specialist prior to your plumbing installation to determine if you actually need a condensate drain or not, because that's going to have to go into your sanitary lines. If you need any underslab electrical conduit runs, this is the time that you need to put those in. While they're running the plumbing, you either yourself or your electrician needs to put anything that needs to go underneath the concrete in, because once that concrete's poured, you've got one shot at doing it. So if you forget something, then you're going to have a real hard time putting it in later. If you're going to have a fixed kitchen island, if it's not one that's movable, if it's actually fixed, per the 2020 National Electric Code, you have to run a power feed to that kitchen island. You should also consider putting in some flush-mounted floor receptacles on each side of where your couch will be located. I put those into the before they poured the slab, because I knew that when my wife puts her couch in the living room, she's going to want to have electrical power on either side of that couch. So we made provision for that, and we set the concrete boxes in there so that we can have flush-mounted receptacles in the floor. You should also, in your shop area, even if you may not need it, you should really consider running a couple of PVC conduits underneath your slab from one side of the garage or shop area to the other for future use. So this is what ours looked like once our plumbing was installed. And as you can see, that clay, when it came out, that compacted clay it came out like chunks of concrete or almost looks like boulders in there. So that, again, that's a good example of a very well compacted building pad. And so once they got their plumbing in there, you, the homeowner, is going to be responsible for returning this back to grade. Okay, so you can, in this picture you can see where they dug everything up to put in all the underslab plumbing in there. You've got two choices. You can either do it yourself, or if you include it in your plumbing quote, you're going to be paying plumber wages to do some groundwork for you. So if you can do it yourself, you're going to save quite a bit of money there, or you might want to consider going with a lower cost trade to bring that back to grade. So this is what ours looked like after I finished restriking the grade on it. And you can see that it's all smoothed back out again. We ran the strings back across there, so we were within 1/2 of an inch variance between what the actual slab height was. So our estimate for our concrete came out to be 102 yards of concrete for the building, and we finished up at exactly 100 yards of concrete is what it took to do our building. So it was very good grade, it was very flat. The Mallet people that was over there to do the visqueen and the cable system, they commented on how well that grade was struck in that building and that they weren't going to have any issues with overage or underage on the concrete pour, a thin or a thick slab in there. So again, this is the homeowner's responsibility to bring it back to grade once your under slab plumbing is in. What about natural gas? Natural gas, you cannot run natural gas underneath the concrete slab. That's pretty much a big no-no. You're going to come in on the outside of the building with a natural gas line, and you're going to penetrate into the building, and then you're going to run it in the overhead and through the walls, not in the slab. So one of the other things that's required, now Mallet buildings, they give you a lifetime guarantee on fungal, rot, and termite. But in the state of Louisiana, the state itself requires, per their code, it says pre-construction treatment, the permittee or primary licensee, that would be you, the homeowner, shall pre-treat all slab and pure-type construction using the required chemical, making the application of the product mixture at the rate and manner prescribed by the manufacturer. So you have to have this pre-construction termite treatment done for a residence in Louisiana. So we went with a company called jounrey. They were out, they're local, they're all over Louisiana. Very reasonable. We had 5,500 square feet that was treated for our building. It came out to be $562. So you have to figure that cost in there. And that's good for 1 year. They're going to give you a certificate once you pay the bill on that. They'll mail you a certificate of the termite treatment. And again, that has to go along with your permit before it's closed out and they issue you an occupancy certification for the building. So that's required by the state, and you will have to have that to turn into your building department. So this is done right before they put the vapor barrier down and the cable retention system, and before the concrete is poured. So generally they do this a couple of days right before they do that work. So you need to keep that in mind and schedule that with your exterminator. Interior framing. So moving on to a little bit about what kind of interior framing what are you going to get into. So because of the post-frame building design, your interior framing is going to be non-load bearing. So this gives you a lot of leeway as to how you construct the layout of your rooms. It's really like a blank slate that you have to design this in. If you go with a 2-story or you have loft construction in part of it, that's not going to be the case, because then some of your interior walls are going to become load bearing, and then the standards and the building code requirements are going to change on that a little bit. So be aware of that. Since it's a residence, you will be required to have a firewall between the residence area and the shop and the garage. What we did is we had 4 additional 6x6 posts set during construction on a 10-foot center, to extending all the way to the very top of the trusses between the 2 halves of the building. And that set up the foundation for our 6-inch thick wall that's going to separate the 2 halves of the building. So the firewall in the state of Louisiana, basically you have to have a 1/2 inch of sheetrock on each side of the wall. It doesn't have to be 6 inches thick, but it was just easier to go with the 6x6 posts, which helped add some structural rigidity to the building. And then they have to be taped and mudded. So they got to be a finished wall to meet that. So then you're going to frame out with, your interior on the exterior walls, you're going to frame that out with 2x6 vertical studs with, on that firewall with a 2x6 bottom and top plates on it, 1/2 inch sheetrock on each side, joints taped and mudded. Any penetration that you make through that wall is going to have to run through a fire stop to meet code. So your building department will be inspecting for that. HVAC cannot connect between those two areas unless you install automatic fire dampers, which are extremely expensive. Okay, so now we're going to break to a commercial.
Tired of gimmicks and spooky tricks? At Mallet Buildings, we don't need to raise prices from the dead or play games with your budget, but we will gladly bury any high prices that come your way. At Mallet Buildings, we're committed to keeping things straightforward, matching any written quote from a competitor, and making sure high prices get buried once and for all. Mallet Buildings, built with trust. Tired of gimmicks and spooky tricks? At Mallet Buildings, we don't need to raise prices from the dead or play games with your budget, but we will gladly bury any high prices that come your way. At Mallet Buildings, we're committed to keeping things straightforward, matching any written quote from a competitor, and making sure high prices get buried once and for all. Mallet Buildings, built with trust. Tired of gimmicks and spooky tricks? At Mallet Buildings, we don't need to raise prices from the dead or play games with your budget, but we will gladly bury any high prices that come your way. At Mallet Buildings, we're committed to keeping things straightforward, matching any written quote from a competitor, and making sure high prices get buried once and for all. Mallet Buildings, built with trust.
Okay, we're back. So we just finished up talking about our interior framing with some of the basics of it. So let's see here. So here's some pictures of our building design that we had. So in this picture over here, you can see the 4 additional 6x6 posts that we had put in on the midsection of the wall. And these extend all the way up to the top of the trusses. So not only did these additional posts form the basis for our firewall between the two halves of the building, but they really increased the structural integrity of the building by adding these additional posts, because now it's almost like I have 2 separate buildings on a much smaller footage that's going to be able to take more wind load and more stress and strain on the building, because they add a lot of rigidity to the building. Eave wall height versus finished ceiling wall height. I see a bunch of comments on this. So we have 10-foot sidewalls or eave walls for our resident structure, but because of your drop on your trusses right here that are sitting on top of your truss supports, you're going to lose, depending on what your span is, the wider the span is, the wider this gets. You're going to lose about 10 inches off that eave wall. So we have 10-foot walls, and measuring off of the concrete slab, our interior ceiling height comes up to about 9 foot 2 inches. So whatever your exterior wall height is, your interior ceiling height is going to be lower. So you need to, if that's an issue, if you want a specific height, you need to specify that with your building specialist when you're talking with them about your quote for your building. Your exterior walls for your interior framing, they can either be one of 2 methods. You can use the 2x6 bookshelf frames on 2-foot centers, or you can use vertical 2x4 or 2x6 studs on 16-inch centers. I can't see that up there. Okay. I can't see if there's any questions on that. To get the full benefit of the bookshelf framing, they need to be installed prior to the metal being installed on the exterior of the building, because they really need to be attached to the girts that are on the outside of the building. We'll have a picture here in a minute to show you what I'm talking about. The only drawback about having the bookshelf type framing is that wherever you're going to have to set a receptacle mid-wall, you will have to put about a 2-foot high piece of 2x4 between the bottom plate and that first bookshelf to be able to mount your receptacle box on. Vertical studs, they can be installed anytime, either before or after the metal installation, but they're not going to provide the same lateral stability that the bookshelf framing does. That's one of the things bookshelf frames do. If they're properly installed, they add a lot of additional lateral stability to your building. So here's some examples that I pulled up off the internet. So this is a large, very high ceiling barndominium that's being built. And this uses the 2x6 bookshelf framing, so you can see that they're running horizontally in this structure through here. So they're on 2-foot centers. So this gives you, the 2-foot centering gives you the ability to hang your sheetrock or whatever sheathing, wall sheathing that you're going to be putting on here. It's not required for the actual structural strength of the building, but you need to have some framing in between the 6x6 posts to be able to land your whatever wall sheathing that you're going to be using on there. So this is one of the methods is the bookshelf framing. I don't particularly like this image, but it's one that gives a good close-up view of it. This shows the 2x6 bookshelves. They're at the bottom edge of the girts. They really should be located up here at the top edge of the girts. The reason you want to put these on before the metal is on is so that you can screw directly through the girt directly into the 2x6, and then you can toenail the 2x6s into your 6x6 post. This is traditional 2x4 vertical framing. So this is a post frame building. This looks like it's probably up north, probably built by the Amish, because they like to use these knee braces on their posts up north. And what they've got is they have a post here, and they have a post here, and they have 3 vertical studs located in the center to form the basis of your wall in between your 6x6 posts. Now, I don't know exactly what they plan to do with the ceiling on this. I have, based on what I see there, with them starting to run the furring strips on the bottom of the trusses, is that they're probably going to be running metal on the roof of this, and the seams are going to be running in line with the trusses. So you have to have those furring strips on there to be able to attach your metal to. If you don't go with your truss spacing on 2-foot centers in your residence, then your only option to attach sheetrock is you will have to fur out on the bottom of those studs, because you have to have at no more than a 2-foot distance between your supports to be able to hang your sheetrock on. This is another example of interior vertical studding. So this, I like this one, the way this one's laid out very well. This is the way I plan on doing ours, because you can see here, here's our 6x6 post, and they have put studs on each side of the post, and then they have framed in between it, and then they have put in a fire stop here in the middle. And that also provides some lateral stability for your studs. And that provides you the basis to put your insulation in, whether you're going to do spray foam or whether you're going to do bat insulation, and then be able to hang your sheetrock directly right in line with the face of the 6x6 posts. So the 6x6 posts will be behind your wall, so they will not be visible. On the ceiling, some of the things that you're going to have to keep in mind that you're going to have to do. On here, I put 3 of them in here just so I could have an image to show on this presentation, is I've taken 2x4 blocking and I've screwed it down from the top directly into the header. So this gives me a lip between each one of the trusses to be able to land the sheetrock on, so that it's not unsupported in between the trusses at the wall. So you'll have to put that 2x4 blocking in there. You're also, on your gable end of the building, you're going to need to either put a 2x6 or a 2x, you could use a 2x4, I guess, but I put a 2x6 on here that is in line directly with the bottom edge of the trusses. So this is on the gable wall, so that when it's framed out, this gives me a lip to be able to attach my sheetrock to when it comes over to that last support on the wall, because your gable truss is on the outside of your 6x6 post, so you don't have any support on the inside. So you have to add that additional board to provide that support. So this is inside of our building. This is our ceiling trusses that are on 2-foot centers. So we specifically asked for that during our building quote. This prevented me from having to lose additional ceiling height and run some type of furring strip, probably 2x4s, across the bottom of the trusses to be able to attach my sheetrock to. So by going with the 2-foot center trusses, this ceiling is sheetrock ready. So as soon as I put my blocking on this part of the wall right here, that additional 2x6, and I put my blocking in between here on the top of the header plate, we'll be ready to hang sheetrock on this ceiling. It's ready to go. Again, this is looking from the residence section into the shop section. So this is what they call a common truss. It's a flat bottom truss. Over in the shop section, we went with the scissor trusses. So if you want to have a vaulted ceiling look, you're going to go with the scissor truss. If you want to have the traditional flat ceiling, you're going to go with the common truss. And here you can see the 4 additional posts that were set for our firewall. So your interior dividing walls will typically be built out of 2x4 studs with a 2x4 bottom and top plate. The bottom plates need to be ground treated and attached with either wedge style anchor bolts or Tapcon concrete screws. Due to the possibility of truss uplift, which is due from expansion and contraction, it's not from wind uplift. This is something totally different. You do not attach the top plate of your interior walls directly to the bottom of the trusses. Otherwise, if you do that, over a 50-foot span, excuse me, you're going to have some expansion and contraction of that truss as the humidity levels in the attic space changes. They're going to move up and down a little bit. So when you put your interior walls in, you're going to leave about a 1/2 inch gap between the bottom of your truss and the top of your top plate on your interior walls. So you're going to follow standard construction techniques for laying out any of your door openings. So here's an image of what we're talking about with your truss uplift. So when you put in your interior walls, you're going to want to leave this 1/2 inch gap in here before you attach your truss clips on top of this. And what this does is as this truss, its humidity changes, it's going to go up and down. If you attach it rigidly to your interior wall, it's going to try to tear your interior wall off the floor, and it's going to crack your sheetrock. So over here on this side, you can see where they have the truss uplift clips here, and then they have your sheetrock clips that go on either side of your interior wall, so that allows this sheetrock to flex along with this truss as it moves slightly from expansion and contraction. One of the other ways to do it is that you do not support the top of your interior wall, your trusses, and you just put a piece of shoe molding on the side to hide the gap between the ceiling sheetrock and your sheetrock on your sidewalls. Mallet buildings, they use Simpson as their supplier for their fasteners, and I can tell you that I really am impressed with that company. Their fasteners are very, very good quality. Simpson makes specific truss clips just for attaching your interior walls. So this truss clip here, it's going to screw down to the very top of your top plate on your interior wall, and then you will put a screw here into the truss, and it will be left loose so that truss can ride up and down in this slot. So it provides the lateral stability for your interior wall so that it doesn't move, but it allows that truss to move up and down on the top of it. So they have single slot and they have double slot. They also, Simpson manufactures those clips for your sheetrock. right up there at the top edge of your interior wall. So I highly advise, recommend going with Simpson. You can find those online. You can shop them through Amazon, Home Depot, Lowe's. You can get Simpson from numerous suppliers. Another one that I found when I was doing research, and I want to look into this one a little bit more because this one is quite a bit faster and simpler. I've got to have to go take a look at it, and this is from NLB Connectors, and this one is pretty much a one-shot deal where it's a specialized. It looks very much like an ollie log that Mallet uses to attach their trusses to the headers, and you drill up through your top plate directly into the stud, and it pre-drills the hole for this plastic sleeve to go into your top plate. And then, as you can see from this picture, that bolt moves up and down in that plastic guide as the truss flexes up and down. So it provides the lateral side-to-side support for your interior wall, and it's much easier and much faster to put in than the other style clips. So I'm going to be looking at this one a little bit more. I may actually go with these for our interior walls. So these are just some general pictures of putting up your interior walls. You're going to be running a top plate, bottom plate. You're going to lay it out wherever your floor plan is, attach it to the side walls. This building here is obviously they're going to have some type of a loft that's going to come in on it. So some of these walls may actually be load bearing instead of non-load bearing. We don't have an upstairs for ours, so all of our interior is non-load bearing. So again, this is an example of the horizontal bookshelf framing for your exterior walls. So again, it's just some random pictures showing an interior framing that these people are putting into their building. Now this one here, this one I don't quite understand what's going on with this structure here, because at first glance, this looks like it's a post frame building, but it is not. This is actual stick-built construction, and where it looks like they've got a post, they've actually got two 2x6s screwed together. But this is just stick-built construction, so I'm not quite sure exactly what's going on with that one. That building doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But they're going to have. You can see that they've got their stud spacing on 16-inch centers so that they can finish it out for a residence on the inside of it. Your windows and doors. Lee talked about this the other day a little bit, that in most of your contractors who provide buildings, they're putting up an accessory building. So the windows that they include, they don't meet residential requirements. If your window does not have this sticker in it that gives you your efficiency rating values on it in a residence, that will not pass inspection. The inspector for your parish will reject those windows, and you will not be able to utilize those. So Mallet, they use all residence style windows. These are the windows that was provided by Mallet for our buildings. They have very, very good efficiency ratings. I didn't have any issue with meeting the res checks certificate requirements for our efficiency ratings on it from their windows. So they're a very good high quality window. Keep that in mind if you're shopping quotes. Any windows, you better make sure that they are actually good for residents if you're putting them in a barndominium. Same thing with your doors. If you have glass light in your doors, now this is one of the doors that we supplied from Masonite Corporation, but you can see energy performance ratings, those are required for a residence. So if it's not a slab type door, if it's actually got glass in it, those energy performance ratings apply to that also. So you have to have those stickers on there, and you can see on this sticker, do not remove until final inspection. So once your inspector has passed off your building and done your final inspections on it, then you can remove those stickers, not before. Doors and windows, your exterior walls, they're going to be 6 inches thick because you're using a 6x6 post in there. So what you're going to need to put in is you're going to need to put a sill plate in directly in line with the bottom of the window so that you can be able to put your trim on the inside of it. So you're going to have to keep in mind with a Barndominium, you're going to need to do that. So this, again, this is a picture. I don't like the way that they did some of the things in here, but this is obviously not a Mallet construction because they've got 2x6s for their window supports and they've got 4x4s for their main posts. That's not how Mallet constructs a building at all. But it does show you, this is what I'm talking about. You're going to have to put this sill here and here because you need to have something to put your decorative finish around the inside of the windows. Generally, most people go with a 1x and then they paint it. I don't recommend going with sheetrock because if your wife sets plants on the window or if the window's open and rain gets in on it, sheetrock, if it gets wet, you got a mess. So I would go with like 1x pine and then sand and stain it or paint it. Your standard doors that you get, whether you buy them from Home Depot or Lowe's or whether they come in a standard building package, they're going to be sized for 4-inch thick walls. In a Barndominium, you're going to have 6-inch thick walls because you're going to be using 6x6 posts. So the only issue with the standard doors is if you install them flush on the outside, when the door swings in, it will not swing back flush against the inside wall because it will hit the post. The post extends out about 2 inches beyond where the door hinges are at. If that's an issue in our build, it wasn't an issue at all because of the way that the walls were, the way the doors swung in, they wouldn't swing back flush against the inside wall anyway. So it wasn't a problem with us for our build. You can pull the outside molding off the door and then recess the door and then fill in the gap on the front side of it and then reattach the molding to it. Or you could custom order doors for a 6-inch wall, but those are going to cost you quite a bit more money for that. So here you can see this is one of our standard doors that was put in as with the standard package. So I'm going to need to put a sill above the top part of this door frame to bring it out so I can add the finished surround on the door because the post sticks out 2 inches further from this. So here you can see this is where my door frame, it comes up right to the edge of the 4x4 post, and this is a 2x6 that is alongside of this post. So I have to come all the way out to here so that this post is in line with the face of the 6x6 post in the building. So I have to, I've got about 10 or 12 posts that I have to fur out another 2 inches to bring them out even with the inside wall face. So here you can see this is one of our front doors that's coming in. You can see this is a 6x6 post. So the door frame stops about 2 inches shy of the outside edge of the post. So if this door opens that way, it will not swing all the way back flush against the wall. It's going to stop when it hits the edge of this post. Again, where this door is at, there's going to be a cabinet right up beside of it, so it's not going to swing wide open anyway. So it's not a problem with us. This is just going to be trimmed out with a top sill plate on there, and then our finish on there, and then painted, and sheetrock will come right up to the edge of it. Electrical packages that you see commonly advertised are for an accessory building. Lee's made mention of this several times. The electrical packages that they are offering right now, they are intended for an accessory building. A barndominium is a completely different animal. It's under totally different codes for the National Electric Code and your parish building department. So your residential structural requirements are going to be quite different. So if you're pricing a building with some other contractor and they say, oh, we're going to throw in free electrical package on it, you better clarify what they're talking about, because if you're building a barndominium, that's not going to be the electrical package that you need inside the actual residence section of it itself. So Louisiana is currently committed to the 2020 National Electric Code and the 2021 International Building Codes. So some of the changes that came along with that is you're now required to have an exterior emergency disconnect, and you have to have a whole house surge arrestor as part of your service entrance. So this changed things up quite a bit, and me and my building inspector, I was formerly an electrician, and so we had several conversations about this, and actually we were on the same page as far as interpretation of the code. Previously, when you had your electrical service come into your house, it came into your meter base, and then it went from the meter base into your main panel that was inside your house. Well, that's changed because what the code requirements are, it says that all 1 and 2 family dwelling unit service conductors shall terminate in disconnecting means having a short circuit current rating equal to or greater than the available fault current. So basically your disconnect is a breaker. So that's going to be the first breaker, and that's going to be your exterior disconnect is actually going to become your main panel. So now that the panel that's inside your house is going to become a sub panel, and that changes your neutral and grounding requirements. So you have to keep this in mind when you're doing your electrical work or you're having somebody else do the electrical work. Otherwise you won't be able to meet code requirements. So this is our service disconnect that's coming in on the side of our building. So this is a combined meter base and emergency disconnect. Excuse me. And the disconnect is a 4-pole 200 amp breaker that's serving both phases that's coming into the house, both hot legs that's coming into the house, I should say. And it has 4 other breaker spaces in it. We've got an additional breaker in there that's going to be powering our well. And over here, this is the whole house surge arrestor that is required to meet building codes now. So that's going to have to be in your exterior disconnect. So that's some of the differences that between an accessory building and an actual residence itself. So because that's the first breaker past your metering device, okay, it changes your neutral and grounding requirements on there. So this would be the main panel, and because that's a circuit breaker is your emergency disconnect, that emergency disconnect outside of your building actually becomes your main panel. So your neutrals and your grounds are bonded inside that panel and go straight to ground. So everything downstream now becomes a sub panel or a service panel. So now the main panel, the panel that's going to be in your house itself, you're going to have separate ground and neutral bars in there. They cannot be bonded, otherwise it'll fail inspection. So this is what we have in our building. I have 2 panels. This is the panel that's about a 42 circuit panel for the house, and this is a 24 circuit panel that's going to be specifically for the shop. So I divided the 2. Power comes in, I don't know if I can see me here. Yep, power comes in here from the emergency disconnect, goes into this first panel, and then it's going to be feeding out from this breaker over to this panel here. So we can see over here where the changes come from, and the manufacturers have not kept up with this. Okay, so you need to keep this in mind when you go buy your panels. This is your ground and neutral bars that comes from the factory in your panel. And since these 2 are now sub panels, I had to go and purchase additional ground bars, bus bars, to put on either side to be able to separate my neutrals and grounds. So you can see here, this one circuit that's coming in here, my neutrals come up to the neutral bar and my ground has to come up to the ground bar. They have to be separate. Anything downstream of that outside emergency disconnect panel, you have to keep your grounds and neutrals separate. They cannot be bonded. So that's just some of the changes as far as your electrical goes, as far as your disconnect. Here, earlier I was talking about setting your conduit when they're doing the underslab plumbing. This is the concrete boxes that I set so that she can have electrical power in the floor on either side of her couch. So they're set a little bit wider than 8 foot for a standard couch. So she's going to have her couch set directly in between these. Probably going to have an end table on either side of them with her lamp or whatever it is she's going to decorate that with. So that'll be fed from down here from the wall to provide me power. If you don't put these in before they pour the concrete, then you're going to have extension cords running across your floor. So I would advise you to make plans for that. This is the power feed in the kitchen that's going to supply power to the island that's in the kitchen. Again, 2020 National Electric Code requires you to have at least one receptacle on an island, kitchen island. So the code requirements on that is you have to have one receptacle per every 9 square feet of your kitchen island top. And if it's over 9 square feet, then you have to start adding additional receptacles. It can't be underneath more than a 6-inch overhang. It can't be lower than 12 inches. You can use the pop-up style receptacles that are flush mounted in the top of the island on there. The 2023 code changed this somewhat. But Louisiana is still committed to the 2020 code, so it is mandatory that you have at least one. So you need to make sure you put that feed in before they pour your concrete. Some of the other electrical residence changes is they have greatly increased the requirement for arc fault circuit interrupters. Nearly every circuit in your residence is now going to require an arc fault circuit interrupter breaker. Normal breakers run about $5 to $7. Arc fault circuit interrupters, they start at about $55 and go up. So I estimate, and this is part of your budgeting, we're going to have about $2,500 worth of breakers in the house panel itself. Ground fault circuit interrupter requirements have increased also, so make sure you check the code for that. They've increased in the kitchen and in your laundry areas. All 120 volt, 15 or 20 amp receptacles in the residence must now be the tamper-proof receptacles so that a child can't stick something in there. And all of your smoke and CO detectors, they all must be hardwired now. So no more battery-powered smoke or carbon dioxide detectors are allowed for a new residence. Again, this is in Louisiana under 2020 National Electric Code. Over in the shop in the garage area, there's been a little bit of change with the code in that area. The ground fault circuit interrupter requirements have increased. This area right here, you really need to sit down with your parish building department and see, and this is one of the things that Lee talks about that they're going to be looking into, because different parishes are interpreting the codes differently. There's no consistency between them. How do they interpret the code in regards to this? My parish over at Washington Parish, they only require GFCI protection on the 120 volt, 15 or 20 amp receptacles. However, the way the code is written, it can be interpreted to require GFCI protection on all circuits, whether they be 120 volt or 240 volt, all the way up to 50 amp. So you need to talk to your building department to see how they interpret that code. So in ours, the way my building department interprets the code, this is a 240 amp or 240 volt, 50 amp receptacle outlet that I put in the shop. The way my parish interprets the code, this one does not require ground fault circuit interrupter protection. Some of the other parishes, this would require ground fault circuit interrupter protection on it. Okay, so that's some of the basic differences that you're going to run into when you go in and start framing out and building out your barndominium. This is not intended to show you everything that it's going to take, but these are some of the key areas that you need to keep in mind when you're actually getting your building erected, and some of the areas you need to talk to your building specialist with: additional pole spacing, additional truss spacing, Firewall posts, those are all important, and you need to talk to your building specialist up front about that. Let them know that you're building a barndominium on that. And there's some of the things, we covered some of the things that you as the homeowner, especially if you're doing a lot of the construction yourself, some of the key areas to keep in mind. It's not a lot that you have to do to convert the building shell over to be barndominium ready, but there are a few things. So the next thing I want to talk about is a little bit about some non-post frame examples. Okay, so post frame, one of the reasons that we chose post frame construction is because it is so easy to actually build out the inside of the building. It's actually your exterior wall of the post frame building is your actual wall inside of your house. The only thing that you got to put in there is you just have to put the additional studs in there to be able to land your sheetrock on. But in some of these other types of construction, you basically have to build a house within a building. So we're going to take a look at a few of those. This next one here, I call this one the Chateau Rouge, because it is basically, it is a house that is built inside of a red iron building. So right here, you could take this building off. This is some very, very nice framing work. I mean, I like the looks of this, but I have to ask why. Because you could take this the metal building off of this, and you could roof it and put siding on it, and you have a house. So why? This is so much more expensive to do than a post-frame building. I don't know if it's aesthetics or exactly what it is, why somebody would choose this construction. It's definitely, you know, we've talked about wind loading and stress on the buildings and everything else. It's basically the only thing I see with the steel frame construction is they're more expensive to build, and you have to do a lot more interior work to actually create your living space inside of it. So this one here, this is another picture. This is another red iron building, and again, you can see they're going back to traditional building methods where they're actually putting a center beam down the middle and rafters to be able to support their interior ceilings. And they're not attaching anything to the building. The red iron building in this case is nothing more than a shell that is erected over the top of a stick-built structure. And in this picture here, you can see how far these columns stick out into the building, and you've got to frame around and in between these columns, and then you've either going to have them exposed and painted, or you're going to have to build out and sheathe those. But down here at the very bottom, where your walls, they're going to hide your anchor bolts. So you're not going to be able to ever do an inspection unless you include some type of access port in the sidewall that you could take off where you can get in there. But you know, corrosion of those anchor bolts over periods of time, if they begin to corrode, that's going to weaken your structure, and you cannot inspect those. So you got to keep that in mind. What do you think about that spray foam up there? That's a good looking work there, right? Again, another one where they've built out the entire inside of the structure, and they've had to frame up for all the windows. They've had to put, you don't have to do any of this in a post frame. Every one of these windows in this door, they've had to put a header over the top of them. Adds up to, it increases your building cost greatly. And again, this roof line that's forming the inside of the building, they have a very massive support beam down here, and they have rafters that are supporting the weight of the ceiling up there. And again, it's not attached to the outer shell of the building at all. This one here is another one that we saw this picture earlier. This is a stick frame wannabe post frame building. Is basically the only thing I can think of what it is. and because they've got doubled up 2x6s. Why they're doing that, I have no idea. And it's all whitewood. It's all non-treated. They're going to have a treated plate down here, but this is all subjected to humidity and that we get down here in Louisiana. You have, and termites are really bad. So I don't know. This one I don't understand. They don't even have the proper truss spacing up there, so they're going to have to fur out all these trusses up here. The cost for this, I know that Mallet could build you the same size of building far cheaper than what it would be to go with stick frame construction in this case. This just makes no sense to me. The only thing I could think of is if these people were in a jurisdiction that they wanted a barndo look and their building department just absolutely would not allow them to do post frame. That's the only thing I could think of for this one. Now this one is similar to red iron, but this is steel frame construction. The difference between red iron, the red iron columns are much larger. Steel frame construction, they actually use structural I-beam. So it's similar principle, but a little bit different materials that are used, but exactly the same thing. What are they doing? They have a building, and then they're having to frame out the entire another building inside of this building. And what is all this wasted space that's up here? It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, this is so much more costly to do. It takes so much more work to do, and it's not owner friendly. I mean, it's very easy with some basic skills. Most homeowners, they could build out the inside of a post frame building relatively easily. There's so many Google videos that'll show you how to do basic framing, basic plumbing, basic electrical work, as long as your parish allows you to do it. And like I said earlier, we're going to come out at least 50, if not 60% less per square foot by going post frame and doing the majority of the work ourselves than what it would be to go turnkey construction. So we'll have a building that's probably valued at $550,000 to $600,000, and we'll be into it for about $250,000. So we'll have a lot of sweat equity into it. You can save a lot of money. You can get a lot of building, lot of residence for your square footage cost by going with post frame construction. And this I want to specifically talk about. I added this in right at the end of the presentation because I wanted to talk a little bit about this. Lee's talked about this some. Excuse me. This is tubular frame construction. Okay, so I really wanted to point this out. This is their instruction manual for putting together a tubular frame building. This is basically an erector set in a box, is what it is. And you can see the wider the building get, what do? They just add additional posts in between on here. Okay, and they're all screwed together. They come in small individual components. Some of the manufacturers, they're actually welded and they're full height. Some of them, they're just basically a building in a box. But I really wanted to focus on this, how they attach these buildings to the ground over here. So, and again, this is from the manufacturer of the tubular frame building. These are depending on whether you go with the standard building or whether you go with what they call their commercial framing, this is going to be either a 1.5 or maybe a 2-inch square tube. And what are they doing? They're taking a piece of rebar and driving it down through a hole through this tube down into a piece of concrete that's stuck in the ground. Now that has absolutely no holding strength whatsoever. Either it's going to pull this out of the ground if you get into severe wind loading, or it's going to simply bend this tube right here. And their other method is they're using a 4.5-inch embedded wedge-style anchor bolt on top of the base rail. Again, and this would be like if it's on a concrete slab. where is all your structural integrity for your building at? It's right here. Right where that anchor bolt attaches to that tubular frame at the bottom. And it has no width to it. It's only 1.5 inches wide. So when you start getting side loading on it, it's going to be very easy for it to bend that structure and cause it to, either the tubes are going to bend at the base rail, or the base rail is going to basically tear out of the anchor bolt. So there's very little structural rigidity in your tube frame buildings, just simply due to the size of the members that are used and how they're anchored into the ground. So this is typical right here of what you see advertised for your tube frame buildings, where you see those ads, oh, I get a 30 by 40 by 12 foot building for $15,000. This is what you're getting, okay? And you can see the gaps up here. They're not sealed to the outside. These are very small frames on here. The wind loading, the L numbers that Lee talked about are very, very low. They will not support the wind loading that we have here in Louisiana for our hurricane wind loadings. When you start talking to them and you start talking to them about wind loading, very quickly they're going to go over to what they call their commercial tube frames, which are basically doubled H-type frames and increased trusses up here in the ceiling to give you any kind of wind loading whatsoever. So those ads that you see, they're clickbait. You're not going to get a building at a super cheap cost that's going to stand up to and provide you with the required wind loadings here in Louisiana. So when you go to this type, if this was 15, you can literally double it to go to that type over there. So that's how much more it increases to be able to get the wind loading. And this is the style of anchors that they use to embed your bottom rail into your concrete. Nothing wrong with a wedge style anchor. They work fantastic to hold my air compressor down in my garage, okay? It doesn't fall over. But would I want to entrust the integrity of my structure that I've put hundreds of thousands of dollars in to that? No way. No. There's no way that when the winds hit that building, it's all cantilevered right off of that anchor bolt that's right at the very bottom of it. And it does not take very much load before that wall is going to start to bend and it's going to flex. You've got your posts that are 3 to 4 feet in the ground. You have got to shear that 6x6 timber off to collapse that wall. And with the post spacing and the strength and the embedment and with the concrete that's up against it, along with the cable retention system on it, that post will flex, but it's not going to fail. All right, so where's our, where's that? Oh, we're in the corner. Let me see if I can go there. I wanted to point out this for Mr. Lee. So this will be one of his additional favorite slides to show here. So this is, if I can see this, can you see it up there? Yep, you can see it. All right. So what we got is right here. We got this rebar. Okay. So this is just a piece of standard steel rebar. It's not coated. It's not protected. It's anything. It's a hole drilled in the bottom of the post. And this is sitting into the post. And you're going to have about 2 inches of concrete that is over the top of this post. Okay. If it's a 4-inch slab, this is going to be captured in the middle of it. So you're going to have about 2 inches above it and 2 inches below it on there. This will stand up there, right? Okay. So let me set this down. So what happens with this? Stay. That piece of rebar, it's unprotected, and it's within 2 inches of the surface, and it's inside of a wood post that is not sealed to the concrete because it just goes straight into the dirt. So that post is subjected to moisture. Moisture can get in around it where the concrete is poured up to it. moisture can get into it from underneath and from the outside where it's not protected by the concrete. And what happens with that piece of rebar, and this does not take a very long time to occur. So this is when it's initially poured in the concrete, and as moisture starts to penetrate in there, that unprotected piece of rebar, it begins to corrode. And as that rebar corrodes, it produces rust. And if you've ever seen rust on a vehicle, is a piece of sheet metal that's rusted the same thickness as a good piece of sheet metal? No, it expands. So as this corrosion product builds up inside the concrete around the rebar, it starts to create stress. And as it continues to corrode, eventually it is going to cause that concrete to spall and crack and fracture around where that piece of rebar is. And that rebar, it's only set 2 inches below the surface of your concrete. So it is not going to, over a matter of probably 5 years or so, you could very well have spalling around that rebar that's supposed to be holding your post down in the ground with the concrete. So that's not a very good means to try to anchor your post into your concrete whatsoever, is simply by using a piece of rebar that's stuck to the post. It would be better if that rebar was all the way down at the very bottom of the post in compacted dirt itself, other than up in the slab that close to the surface of it. Okay, so one of the last things I want to cover here is there's been a lot of people that has on some of the live feeds and some of the forums, they've asked about this stuff. Where do I get these fancy brackets that I see on some of these barndominiums on their trusses? So one of the sources that I found that you can go look to, and if you look this source up on the internet, on Google, you will find others. Madison Iron and Wood, they make a full range of decorative brackets to utilize for exposed beams. And the other one is for mounting of lights on ribbed metal. So if you go to Everett Manufacturing, hopefully everybody can see it, yep, Everett Manufacturing, they manufacture a full line of brackets to be able to go up against your exterior ribbed metal so that you can mount your lights on. Again, if you do a search for Everett Manufacturing, it's going to come up and it's going to show you additional manufacturers out there. Okay, so I just wanted to throw that information out there because a lot of people are asking about that quite commonly. Now the last thing that I wanted to cover today, we saw that Google Trends map earlier that was talking about barndominiums. So Lee, do you have any idea what this Google Trend map is for? Nope. This is interest over time for Mallet buildings. This is your Google Trends line right here. Something happened back in 2007. I have a suspicion that this is where you guys probably started getting on Facebook or social media. It was back in 2007. And you guys have done a pretty good job because you've climbed all the way up to the interest level. You're right. Mallet Buildings is right up here at the top up there. And of course, what state's #1? Louisiana. Yep. So Texas, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Arkansas. Those are the areas primarily that are searching on Mallet buildings. So, yep, your guys here, they're doing good. They're keeping you out there in the forefront there. So, okay. Let's see. Do we have any questions there? Can you explain how Mallet buildings are secured in the ground? Yes, I can. Hey, can you go back and jump back to the slide that has the where I had the Visqueen? It's project update, so it's toward the front.
Get back
Yeah,
over here,
I'll
Richard.
let you explain
I'm back.
this a
I'm
little
back
bit.
again.
Right there. This one. This is a good one right there. Yep.
Who's asking the question? Mr. Hughes. Yeah.
Yep, Mr. Hughes.
Mr. Hughes, if you look at the picture, you'll notice we are 3 feet in the ground. And we put concrete in the bottom of the holes. But the retention cable system is going to keep with the uplift. See all these cables? This is your place, huh?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All these cables are attached to all these posts. uplift. We transferred the dead weight of the concrete to the outer perimeter of the building, okay? Now, once that's done, all these posts are down on the ground 3 feet. That's compacted soil around those posts. And in order to move that building, so imagine headwind hitting the building. All these posts are working in conjunction with each other. You'd have to start shearing them all simultaneously to move this building from a headwind perspective, okay? Because they're all anchored 3 feet. Unlike what he showed you with the anchoring system on top of the slab, when that bolt fails, that's only holding it down. Whereas here, because everything's encased now around the concrete and the retention cable system, with the retention cable system stopping uplift, okay? Because the only way to stop uplift is dead weight. And that's why we attach this dead weight to there. I hope I answered your question, but they're all anchored 3 to 4 feet into the ground. There's 2 types of winds you must be concerned with. Headwind, uplift. And the fact that the posts are anchored 3 feet in the ground instead of just sitting on top of the ground. You know, some people want to put their posts with anchors on top of the slab. I'm not a fan of that. You can do it. But understand, I guess I'll use a crude way of explaining it to you. If I was to nail your feet to the top of this, it would be easy to push you over. But if I buried you up to your knees, I'd have to break your legs. It's kind of that simple. You'd have to break these posts versus just, you know, leaning me over. And so that's why the system works so strong, and that's why you see these buildings, post-frame buildings, so strong in these storms. Stick frame, everything's on top of the slab. Steel on top of the slab. Only post-frame uses this type of construction, and it's very, very strong. So I hope that answered. That's a good Louisiana explanation. Well, it is. It is the same theory. But, you know, I really do appreciate it. But this was a hell of a presentation, folks. Man, I tell you, when he told me he was coming to do a presentation, I said, whoa. But he covered a lot of ground on what he's doing, and I hope his presentation helped you. If you're considering building a barndominium, this presentation will be available on YouTube. You can go back and refresh by watching him on what he did. And Facebook. And you can go back when you decide to do the stuff on the inside and follow his critique of what he was talking about, because he's basically doing. He's an electrician. He's a nuclear something too.
Field engineer.
Field engineer. But bottom line is, I think what he did today, for those of you who are building inside, he covered a lot of things you need to be concerned with. I think the big takeaway I saw, why would you build a wood building inside of a metal building? I never could figure that out either. That's twice as expensive. It just doesn't make any sense to use a steel building and then build a wood building inside there. And if you looked at the majority of what you saw there, where we got these pictures, it was all white wood. You got no termite protection, rotten fungal decay protection. I mean, you know, that's why we do all treated buildings, because that's what you need in Louisiana. Them white wood buildings are susceptible. We have one of the highest termite regions in the country, right here, Louisiana.
It's bad.
It's bad.
My neighbor's building was eat up with termites.
Termites. So you go with the all-treated building, and I'm telling you, they're not going to mess with it. You need to do that. And the other thing you brought up, you know, put that spray, which is the law. You put that, but you got to do that every year. It's only good for 1 year.
Correct.
So your protection's 1 year, and they want to come back and just put the treated building up. You got a lifetime warranty from the manufacturer. You put your post in that post protector, and you ain't got to worry about all that stuff. I mean, and it gets expensive. Imagine 20 years at $500. You're gonna spend 10 grand just on treatments. It don't make sense. But like I said, the iron buildings, you know, I'm not a fan of them, because the anchor system, I'm not a big fan of that, at least in Louisiana and Texas, in the Gulf Coast region. Those bolts, they're going to rust. Over 30 years, and a storm comes through there, you're going to lose your building. But I just can't see why you want to spend all that money and then lose space. In one picture, they lost 3 or 4 feet of space. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't make sense. You know, I guess the steel people try to, you know, some people try to convince you that, but when you look at the picture, it's pretty self-explanatory that, well, that don't make any sense. Why would
the efficiency there to build a structure is just not there. It's with post frame, every bit of the space that I see in here, that you see in here, now this is in the shop side, but it's the same thing, it wouldn't matter. You're going to use it. You're not losing
and he's right. You see the columns, you're gonna lose some square footage on where the columns are.
Yeah.
You're going to have to come out. They're tapered. It's a mess. It just doesn't make sense to build a barndominium out of a metal building unless you want to just spend a bunch of money and lose a lot of space. Just doesn't make any sense.
Oh, the concrete cost is so much higher for a red frame building.
Yep.
If I'd gone with a red frame building, okay, the slab on our building, the 50 by 110 foot slab, at a discounted rate, specifically for a red iron building, that slab would have cost me $55,000 just for the slab to be able to support the building.
Yeah, and the chain walls. Yeah, that's right. You got to put all them big chain walls in there.
That's a third of the entire cost of my
my
building that we got from Mallet.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I hope today was a good day for y'all. Y'all go back and watch it and as many times as you want. I think there was a lot of good information. We're going to be pushing this one out there for people to see and use. And Mr. Tackett's an ambassador. If you want to see a building in that region, if you're from around Bogalusa, he's the man. I'm sure he'll put another package together and come back another time because he's really good at this.
Oh yeah, I enjoy doing it.
He's really good at this stuff. I wish you would have brought your wife and spent the night, but you couldn't make it this time.
No, our daughter's been in the hospital, so she's down there helping take care of the grandkids.
I hate to hear that. Yeah. But anyway, well, folks, look, we're gonna close in for the day. I hope y'all have a nice weekend. I want to thank Mr. Tackett for coming back. I hope y'all enjoyed this show. It was really a good show. A little long, but you know what? Good information takes a little bit of time.
Yep. And Mr. Hughes, you're more than welcome to get in contact with me tomorrow. I'll see if I can get your number from somebody. You know where I'm at. You're out the building today, so I'll be there all day tomorrow. If you want to come out and take another look at the building and have me walk you around, please come out.
Look, y'all have a nice weekend. Give us a call at 337-515-2154. That's my personal cell phone number. Or call our office at 337-214-0428. Have a nice weekend. And remember, we're open tomorrow. Unlike some of my competitors who go home and play around, we're here to serve you. We'll be open till 12 every Saturday. And if you need us to stay longer, we'd be glad to stay. Just call us and we'll wait for you. We want to serve you first. Once again, thank you. You'll have a nice weekend and good luck to everybody.
Tired of gimmicks and spooky tricks? At Mallet Buildings, we don't need to raise prices from the dead or play games with your budget, but we will gladly bury any high prices that come your way. At Mallet Buildings, we're committed to keeping things straightforward, matching any written quote from a competitor, and making sure high prices get buried once and for all. Mallet Buildings, built with trust. Tired of gimmicks and spooky tricks? At Mallet Buildings, we don't need to raise prices from the dead or play games with your budget, but we will gladly bury any high prices that come your way. At Mallet Buildings, we're committed to keeping things straightforward, matching any written quote from a competitor, and making sure high prices get buried once and for all. Mallet Buildings, built with trust. Tired of gimmicks and spooky tricks? At Mallet Buildings, we don't need to raise prices from the dead or play games with your budget, but we will gladly bury any high prices that come your way. At Mallet Buildings, we're committed to keeping things straightforward, matching any written quote from a competitor, and making sure high prices get buried once and for all. Mallet Buildings, built with trust. Tired of gimmicks and spooky tricks? At Mallet Buildings, we don't need to raise prices from the dead or play games with your budget, but we will gladly bury any high prices that come your way. At Mallet Buildings, we're committed to keeping things straightforward, matching any written quote from a competitor, and making sure high prices get buried once and for all. Mallet Buildings, built with trust. Tired of gimmicks and spooky tricks? At Mallet Buildings, we don't need to raise prices from the dead or play games with your budget, but we will gladly bury any high prices that come your way. At Mallet Buildings, we're committed to keeping